Hey everybody, this is Deb with Truthification Chronicles, and we've got a lot to cover tonight. There have been subpoenas the last 2-3 weeks, just stuff going on. It's been crazy. So I've tried to sort through and find out some of them here, and specifically we're going to talk about Mike Pompeo tonight and the Department of State, because those seem to be the hotbed right now, especially with all the Ukraine stuff going on. But before we get started, I wanted to remind you of this. If you haven't signed this yet, please sign it, because I'm asking for a recusal of Congress members who are DNC candidates on all matters concerning President Trump. I don't think it's right for them to sit in judgment of anything, any investigation into Trump when he is their opponent. They have a personal political stake in seeing him treated poorly or trying to make him look bad. So please, we've got a lot of work to do, folks. We've got 29 days here, or 28 probably by the time you see this, and we need to get 99,000 signatures still. It's a lot, I know, but I think if we can still get the word out there more and more, people will start to see that, yeah, this is something that really needs to be addressed. We can also call our senators and our representatives, or, contact them through the email contact on their websites and let them know that this is something that we think should be done, because there's absolutely no reason these people who have a political stake in this should be allowed to sit in judgment of this president and investigate him. And I put that in quotation marks, okay? I was doing air quotes, but you couldn't see it. So anyway, I wanted to show you that. The link will be down below. Remember, when you sign this, you'll get a verification link to your email address, and then you have to click that for it to actually count. So make sure that you do that, all right? Well, let's get started. Oh, if you haven't seen this video, you need to see this one, okay? Because Giuliani is going to sue. They are working on a lawsuit right now against these Democrats that are really causing them such grief and are saying things that they shouldn't be saying. And you see, here's the deal. When they're actually in Congress or speaking on the floor, they have a type of immunity against, being prosecuted for things they say. But when they are out in the streets and things, they don't. So at least that's what he was saying in this. I'm not going to play this all because, believe me, I've got a whole ton of stuff to do. And I will put this down below, but you need to listen to this because he's got some good stuff there. And I really do think that they're going to end up doing some lawsuits against some of these Democrats. Isn't it about time? Yeah. Well, we're going to talk about Pompeo today because, the Democrats subpoenaed Pompeo for Ukraine documents as House committees accelerate impeachment inquiry. Of course, this is the Democrat side of the Oversight committee. And it was 3 different committees, and they're all working together on this. Because remember, I did a video on the memorandum of understanding the moves? Okay, yeah, that was something that Jim Jordan was really upset about, because he should have been. They're all colluding together. Talk about a collusion. Yeah, they're all colluding together, conspiring together to try to pull this off, because they want to get rid of our president. It's a coup. We know it's a coup. Everybody knows. Even Trump tweeted about it being a coup. So everybody knows. Anyway, so these are the chairman of the Committee on Foreign Affairs, who is Representative Elliot Engel. I don't really know him, but, he's in with all of them. Adam Schiff, you've got, who is the chairman of the House Permanent Select Committee on Intelligence. And just the idea of Adam Schiff being in the same sentence as intelligence just seems to me quite an oxymoron. But, anyway. And Representative Elijah E. Cummings, the chairman of the Committee on Oversight and Reform, which is the website I'm looking at with this on it. They sent a letter to Secretary of State Mike Pompeo for documents, including many he has refused to produce for weeks. And of course, they label it this way because look at this spin. The committees are investigating the extent to which President Trump jeopardized national security by pressing Ukraine to interfere with our 2020 election and by withholding security assistance provided by Congress to help Ukraine counter Russian aggression. Okay, that's all been debunked. So, I just, no, he jeopardized national security. No, he didn't. And he didn't press Ukraine. Even the Ukrainian president said that. So, hello, have you been paying attention? No, they haven't. They are so blind with hatred that they just can't see truth anymore. They refuse to see truth. And so, pursuant to the House of Representatives impeachment inquiry, we are hereby transmitting a subpoena that compels you to produce the documents set forth in the accompanying schedule by October 4th, 2019, the chairman wrote. Anyway, we'll look at that letter in just a minute. And there have been follow-up letters. I mean, stuff has been going on in September. They had all different kinds of things going here and there. And so, and not only him, but I did want to bring this up too, that, yeah, they're working on Giuliani, but I think you already knew that. And it's the same people. See, there they are, the same people. They want Giuliani in there. But the problem is, they're both covered under this executive privilege. So they're not going to get anything out of them. And anyway, Pompeo is ticked off about this. He is not happy at all. And this is what he had to say. He says, I'm concerned with aspects of the committee's request that can be understood only as an attempt to intimidate, bully, and treat improperly the distinguished professionals of the Department of State, including several career FSOs. And here is the letter. So we're going to get to this in just a minute, the actual letter. We'll look through that. But I wanted to show you his comments first. He says, let me be clear. I will not tolerate such tactics, and I will use all means at my disposal to prevent and expose any attempts to intimidate the dedicated professionals whom I am proud to lead and serve alongside at the State Department. So he's none too happy, and he's taking them on. Now, let's look at some of the stuff here, because this is something that Pompeo put out. This is on the Department of State website. U.S. targets Russian actors involved in efforts to influence U.S. elections. Well, this is all part of what they're doing, and I'm not going to go through this because there's a bunch of Russian names I'm not going to deal with, okay? But this is what Pompeo's trying to do. They are working with that. They're trying to get things straight, to find out what happened. And yet he's got all these yippy little dogs. It's like, having all these little chihuahuas or something yipping at your heels, just being so annoying while you're trying to get work done. So anyway, these are the things they're trying to do, and yet he has to deal with these. Yep, September 9th was the first one that I found, and this was from the three, Foreign Affairs, Intelligence, and Oversight and Reform. Jointly request documents related to reported efforts by President Trump and his associates to improperly pressure the Ukrainian government to assist the president's bid for re-election. Okay, did you read the transcript? It said nothing about his re-election. In fact, it was focused on the 2016 election, which, the Democrats seemed to be all wanting to find out the truth about that until they found out Mueller wasn't going to give them the story they wanted. So, anyway, a growing public record indicates that for nearly 2 years, the president and his personal attorney, Rudy Giuliani, appeared to have acted outside legitimate law enforcement and diplomatic channels to coerce the Ukrainian government into pursuing 2 politically motivated investigations under the guise of anti-corruption activity. It actually was anti-corruption activity. He's draining the swamp, folks, and he's trying to get to the heart of this, which evidently the Democrats don't want. Well, we know that because they're at the heart of it. And so they're trying their best not to let it happen. So anyway, the first is a prosecution of Ukrainians who provided key evidence against Mr. Trump's convicted campaign manager, Paul Manafort. Hey, did you hear him say anything about Manafort in that transcript of that phone call? You know what? I didn't even see Manafort's name in there. Was it? I mean, maybe I missed it. I've read a lot in the last few days, so maybe it was there and I just forgot it, but I don't think it was. That investigation aims to undercut the Mueller report's overwhelming evidence that Russia interfered in the 2016 election to support Trump's campaign. Well, that's not necessarily true. Overwhelming evidence. You do realize that one of the Russian people that they, companies that they put in there and they indicted, tried to get the documents through discovery and they wouldn't give them to them. And the company itself did not even exist at the time Mueller said they did. And they were doing all this. So it's like, yeah, it's bogus. We know it's bogus. It's just going to have to come out. The other case targets the son of former Vice President Joseph R. Biden, who is challenging Mr. Trump for the presidency in 2020. As the 2020 election draws closer, it's not closer, it's a year away, President Trump and his personal attorney appear to have increased pressure on the Ukrainian government and its justice system in service of President Trump's re-election campaign. And the White House and the State Department may be abetting this scheme. Dum dum dum. Yeah. Oh my goodness. It just is amazing. And of course, got to have a New York Times article listed there. They always have to. They got to have something because that's what they do. That's the wrap-up smear right there, folks. According to the Ukrainian government, in a July 25th, 2019 call with Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky, President Trump apparently focused on these investigations, telling President Zelensky that he is convinced the new Ukrainian government will be able to quickly improve the image of Ukraine and complete the investigation of corruption cases which inhibited the interaction between Ukraine and the U.S. Well, it's because Ukraine was dealing with corruption at the highest levels in their government, their own deep state. Yep. And so Trump is helping them get rid of it. And that's a good thing. The next day, Ambassador Kurt Volker, U.S. Special Representative for Ukraine, was dispatched to meet with President Zelensky. Days later, the president's personal attorney met Andriy Yermak, an aide to President Zelensky in Spain, where the president's personal attorney, who has no official administration or diplomatic position, reportedly suggested a possible heads of state meeting between Presidents Trump and Zelensky and tweeted an accusation about former Vice President Biden's son, which is true, by the way. The State Department subsequently acknowledged that Ambassador Volker used his office to facilitate the meeting between the two. Although the State Department has insisted that President Trump's attorney is a private citizen who does not speak on behalf of the U.S. government, Mr. Yermak publicly stated that it was not clear to him whether Mr. Giuliani was representing Mr. Trump in their talks. President Trump has also threatened to withhold more than $250 million in security assistance that Congress has appropriated, the Pentagon supports, and Ukraine desperately needs. I thought they got that already, didn't they? Oh, well, Ukraine's sovereignty and territorial integrity are under assault from Russia and its proxies in illegally occupied Ukrainian territory. If the president is trying to pressure Ukraine into choosing between defending itself from Russian aggression without U.S. assistance or leveraging its judicial system to serve the ends of the Trump campaign, this would represent a staggering abuse of power, a boon to Moscow, and a betrayal of the public trust. They cannot imagine someone who genuinely has the welfare of the people of America at heart. They just can't imagine it because to them, that is totally unimaginable. It is something that they can't even conceive of because their hearts are so dark and they don't care about the American people. They only care about themselves and their pockets. That the State Department has apparently acted as a broker between President Trump's personal attorney and Ukrainian officials raises serious concerns that the department is complicit in a corrupt scheme that undercuts U.S. foreign policy and national security interests in favor of the president's personal agenda. Congress has a constitutionally mandated obligation. They always do that. Congress has a constitutionally mandated obligation to conduct oversight. Protect the sanctity of our elections. Yeah, right. How many of those people were actually elected fairly? I bet if we checked, bet there's been a lot of sanctity of our elections that they have totally ignored and stomped all over, and ensure that the nation's diplomatic resources and foreign assistance are being deployed for the benefit of the United States, not the personal interests of the president. You know, they just are so filled with hatred. Hatred not only of the president, but hatred of we the people and the United States. They only see us as a means to their own wealth and power. That's all they see us as. It's sad. It's very, very sad. So in order to fulfill this obligation, we want all these records. All right, these are the things they want. They have all this, and he had until Monday, September 16th. Well, of course, he didn't give it to them. And, you know, if you go through, that's all the other correspondence and all this stuff they want. Oh, yeah, they want all this stuff. See? Lots and lots of stuff. And there's their little traitorous signatures they've put on this document. So that was September 9th. Well, September 3rd, again, they send another one saying, hey, we wrote to you requesting 6 categories of documents relating to the reports that President Trump and his personal lawyer, Rudy Giuliani, pressed the Ukrainian government to interfere with the upcoming U.S. presidential election by... Yeah. It just kind of gets that way. After a while, you just hear their voices getting higher and higher as they're saying all this. And so, to date, the State Department has failed to comply in any way with the committee's request and has not even sent a formal reply. Instead, on September 20th, 4 days after the deadline for producing the documents, State Department staff sent an email claiming that they were still reviewing our requests. Good for them, without giving any indication of when or whether the department will produce the documents. Chances are not. Yeah. Anyway, seeking to enlist a foreign actor to interfere with an American election undermines our sovereignty, democracy, and the Constitution which the president is sworn to preserve, protect, and defend. But hey, what about those Democrats that sent a letter to Ukraine? We want to ignore them, huh? Yet the president and his personal attorney now appear to be openly engaging in precisely this type of abuse of power involving the Ukrainian government ahead of the 2020 election. And so then they got Christopher Wray, they mentioned him, testified before the Senate that any public official or member of any campaign should immediately report to the FBI any conversations with foreign actors about influencing or interfering with our election. Well, you know what? Trump was talking about the 2016 election. So it has nothing to do with the 2020 election. That's all fabricated. That's like Adam Schiff's little fractured fairy tale. That's where that came from. Anyway, I will leave the rest of this. Basically, it is just them getting so ticked off because Pompeo's not doing what they want him to do. And that he's actually respecting the whole thing with Trump and, executive privilege. It's just going to be, oh, look, ABC News. Yeah, and then the Wall Street Journal here and NBC News. Now, Wall Street Journal isn't always real left, but it appears that they, definitely picked out that Trump repeatedly pressed Ukraine president. No, he didn't. Did y'all read the transcript? Anyway, and of course, you got Washington Post here. They always do this. And so this letter, it just goes on and on and on. It's just them saying, you didn't do what we wanted you to do. And we're going to just get you on your case and we're going to make your life miserable because you haven't done what we wanted to do. All right. So anyway, that's this from September 23rd. And then we have this one from September 27th. So again, pursuant to the House of Representatives impeachment inquiry, we write to inform you that depositions for each of the following State Department officials will be scheduled on the dates indicated below. And look, this is the 27th of September they're doing this, and the depositions were like October 2nd? That's not very much time to get prepared for a deposition. And so they have these 5 people. Well, this is what really ticked Pompeo off. These are his people. These are people that work for him, and he feels responsible for them. And so he's pretty upset that they have tried to take these 5 people. They're going to try to make their lives miserable because they're going to try to attack them and make them look like they are, scum of the earth, because that's what they do. And of course, this letter goes on. You can read it. I'm not going to go through all this letter because it is just irritating, very irritating. So that's September 27th. Now, these are all being exchanged email, so they do, get there right away. It's not like they have to go through the mail or anything. But this is where they asked to have those 5 deposed on that schedule. Okay, and then we go to the same day. They sent this one that says, Dear Mr. Secretary, pursuant to the House of Representatives impeachment inquiry, we are hereby transmitting a subpoena that compels you to produce the documents set forth in the accompanying schedule by October 4th. And I already read that to you. This subpoena is being issued by the Committee on Foreign Affairs after consultation with the Permanent Select Committee on Intelligence and the Committee on Oversight and Reform. Oh, yeah, you guys had it all planned out. This has been planned for months. They have been working on this. They just couldn't figure out how they were expecting Mueller to give them the smoking gun, and he didn't do it. And so they have been scrambling ever since then to try to put something together to get to him. And so your failure or refusal to comply with the subpoena shall constitute evidence of obstruction of the House's impeachment inquiry. Okay? So they sit there and they say, and if you don't come, we're going to say you're guilty. Guilty, guilty, guilty. Oh. These guys, they are just so irritating. And again, you can go through this. They gave you footnotes and stuff. Unfortunately, the footnotes are not, clickable. So you have to actually copy them and paste them if you can. And so, yeah, your actions are all the more troubling, given that since our September 9th request, it has become clear that multiple State Department officials have direct knowledge of the subject matters of the House's impeachment inquiry. Well, they work with the president. Of course they're going to have knowledge of it. It's just, yeah. So anyway, the rest of this is just, again, they give you these footnotes with Twitter. Isn't it bizarre that Twitter is one of those things that now we're considering anything on Twitter a reliable source? Kind of weird. And then, of course, this one is from the Washington Post. So they, of course, had to pick that out. And so anyway, that's what this is. And again, it's signed by the 3 traitors. So going to be interesting on that. But this is really what Pompeo is referring to. Because these 3 chairs' statement on Secretary Pompeo stonewalling House impeachment inquiry. But this is what Pompeo had to say. Now, this is the one that he posted. It's not very good quality. It's a little fuzzy, but this is the best I could do, okay? We are in receipt of, and this is from Pompeo. All right. We are in receipt of your September 27, 2019 letter requesting the department to voluntarily make available 5 current and former department officials for depositions. I am concerned with aspects of your request, described more fully below, that can be understood only as an attempt to intimidate, bully, and treat improperly distinguished professionals of the Department of State, including several career Foreign Service officers whom the committee is now targeting. I have been made aware that committee staff has been sending intimidating communications to career department professionals who have specifically asked for committee communications to be channeled through the Bureau of Legislative Affairs, as is customary. Let me be clear. I will not tolerate such tactics, and I will use all means at my disposal to prevent and expose any attempts to intimidate the dedicated professionals whom I am proud to lead and serve alongside at the Department of State. Your letter also raises significant legal and procedural concerns. First, your letter raises fundamental legal questions related to the authority of the committee to compel an appearance for a deposition solely by virtue of these letters. Your letter implies that you have sought to compel department officials to appear for depositions on the identified dates. Yet the committee has not issued any subpoenas for depositions, and we are not aware of any other authority by which the committee could compel appearance at a deposition. The House rules also require the committee to provide a notice of deposition, but your letter contains no such notice and otherwise fails to meet the requirements of those rules. It therefore appears that your letter may only be read as a request for a voluntary appearance of the 5 department officials. Second, your letter provides a woefully inadequate opportunity for the department and the requested witnesses to prepare. These individuals have retained or may be retaining private counsel, as is their constitutional right. And in the course of the department's discussions with these individuals, several have indicated that they need more time both to retain and to consult with private counsel. In addition, State Department counsel must consult with these officials and their counsel, once retained, regarding the department's legitimate interests in safeguarding potentially privileged and classified information. The proposed dates for the depositions do not provide adequate time for the department and its employees to appropriately prepare. And then the next page. Sorry, I got to do it with this program. It just, it's not my favorite to be doing this, but because it's a little temperamental. Third, your letter and subsequent communications by committee staff indicate that the committee intends to prevent State Department counsel from participating in the depositions of current and former department officials. This amounts to an attempt to circumvent the executive branch's unquestionably legitimate constitutional interest in protecting potentially privileged information related to the conduct of diplomatic relations. This information may also remain subject to federal rules relating to the unauthorized disclosure of classified information. As the Department of Justice has made clear, a congressional committee may not validly prohibit agency counsel from being present during an employee deposition, because such an exclusion would impair the president's constitutional authority to control the disclosure of privileged information and to supervise the executive branch's communications with Congress. Therefore, the 5 officials subject to your letter may not attend any interview or deposition without counsel from the executive branch present to ensure that the executive branch's constitutional authority to control the disclosure of confidential information, including deliberative matters and diplomatic communications, is not impaired. Fourth, the invitations the committee sent to the 5 department officials include requests that each of them personally produce a vast amount of documents. These requests appear to duplicate the subpoena that was previously served on the Secretary of State. The requested records constitute the property of the Department of State and are subject to restrictions on the unauthorized disclosure of classified information and various executive branch privileges. So in other words, you're asking for Department of State material. You're going to have to listen to us because we have certain rules, we have protocol, you gotta follow them. If you're not going to follow them, you're not going to get the stuff. By purporting to induce individual department professionals and career foreign service officers to produce materials that are not theirs to produce, which could potentially constitute a violation of numerous civil and criminal statutes and regulations if proper procedures are not followed, the committee has engaged in an act of intimidation and an invitation to violate federal records laws. So they're asking for something they can't legitimately ask for. Which doesn't surprise us, right? Finally, you have asserted that failure by department officials to meet your demonstratively inadequate timeline for voluntary appearances, quote, shall constitute evidence of obstruction, unquote. There is no legal basis for such a threat. Given the serious substantive and procedural deficiencies in the committee's request, including the committee's apparent effort to circumvent executive branch constitutional interests in having department counsel present at any depositions, the committee's assertion lacks any recognized legal basis. I urge you to exercise restraint in making such unfounded statements in the future. The department also acknowledges receipt of the subpoena communicated by separate letter dated September 27, 2019, and intends to respond to that subpoena by the noticed return date of October 4th. And there's just a little bit on this third page here. Based on the profound procedural and legal deficiencies noted above, the committee's requested dates for depositions are not feasible. The department will be in further contact with the committee in the near future as we obtain further clarity on these matters. Signed by Mike Pompeo. Oh, just kind of crazy that this is going on. I cannot believe this is how they're acting, but then again, yes, I can. So, here we go. I've got everything for you. I'll have all the links down below. You can read them for yourself. But this is the situation we're at. Pompeo is pushing back on him, and Rudy Giuliani is planning on starting some lawsuits. So, gonna be some fireworks going on for the next few months. So, hang on to your hat, folks. Pop up a bunch of that popcorn. And, hey, if you don't have a More Popcorn t-shirt, check that out too, okay? So that's what I've got for you on this one. I want to thank you for stopping by, and I'll see y'all later.